Welcome to Scoli Sleep Stories. Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Let the day soften around you and settle in for a calm documentary made for curious minds. If these stories help you rest, learn, or simply enjoy a quieter part of the day, please consider liking this episode and subscribing to the channel. Now, when you are ready, let us begin. Chapter 1. Dawn at the City Gate. Before sunrise, the road is more easily felt than seen. Its surface lies cool beneath the traveler's sandals, firm and faintly damp from the night air. Within the town, the street is paved with broad stones, their edges rounded by wheels, hooves, and countless passing feet. Beyond the gate, the surface will change. There may be fitted stone for a short distance, followed by smaller stones and packed gravel, raised a little above the neighboring ground. For now, in the last gray quiet before morning, each step makes only a soft brushing sound. A few lamps still burn beneath doorways. Their flames are small. Wisps of smoke gather under the tiled eaves before drifting into the street. Somewhere nearby, a bakery has been working through the dark hours. Warm loaves are being arranged in shallow baskets, and the scent of bread moves gently between the heavier smells of stable straw, leather, damp stone, and animals waiting to be let out. At the end of the street stands the town gate. This particular town has a defensive wall, though not every Roman settlement does. Walls differ from place to place and from century to century. Some towns possess strong gates and towers. Others are more open, their streets passing into the countryside with little more than a change in paving and buildings. Here, in a temperate corner of the Mediterranean world, the gate is an ordinary point of passage. It is watched, maintained, and opened each morning for the day's movement. A wooden gate leaf scrapes slowly across the threshold. The sound is low and rough, followed by a murmur from the gate staff. There is no great ceremony. A watchman exchanges a few words with a farmer waiting beside two donkeys. Another man adjusts the fastening of a cart. Someone coughs in the cool air. Then the opening is wide enough, and the first travelers begin to pass through. Our traveler waits without impatience. The journey ahead is neither grand nor especially dramatic. The destination is a modest settlement several stages away. It is far enough to require more than one day on the road, yet close enough to be reached without crossing seas or mountain ranges. The traveler carries a small bundle of clothing, food for the first part of the day, a flask, and a letter intended for relatives near the destination. Other errands may be completed along the way. A payment may be collected. A purchase may be discussed. News may be exchanged. Roman journeys often serve several purposes at once. Near the gate, a mule shifts its weight. Leather harness creaks against the wooden frame of its pack saddle. The animal lowers its head and breathes into the morning, patient but not yet fully awake to the day. Its owner runs a hand along one strap, checking the buckle by touch. The mule carries two balanced loads. Pottery wrapped in straw rests on one side, and folded cloth on the other. This is not a vast merchant caravan carrying treasure from the distant edges of the world. It is the smaller trade that fills most roads on most days. Pots move from a workshop to a neighboring market. Oil travels from a farm to a town. Tools go out to villages, while vegetables, fruit, cheese, firewood, and baskets come in. A cart approaches from outside the walls. Its wheels turn slowly, and its driver walks beside it rather than riding. The cart is loaded with onions, greens, and several covered jars. There is room on its wooden boards, but the boards are hard, and the wheels transmit every unevenness in the road. The driver finds walking easier for now. Carts are useful for baggage and goods, yet they are not always comfortable. They can also be slow, particularly on steep ground, damaged surfaces, or busy approaches to a town. The farmer leading this cart has probably been moving since well before dawn. His destination is only the town market. Before the day is far advanced, he may have sold most of what he carries and begun the return home. For him, the road is not a great line across the empire. It is a familiar path between a field, a gate, and a market stall. Behind him comes a family group preparing to leave town. An older woman walks with a staff. Beside her is a younger couple, and a child holds one end of a folded cloak. A small cart carries household bundles and a basket covered with cloth. They may be visiting relatives in another settlement. They may be moving for seasonal work, or returning home after business in town. Women and children are as much a part of travel as men, especially in households and family groups, although their experiences depend greatly on wealth, status, health, custom, and circumstance. Farther back, a laborer carries his belongings in a bundle across one shoulder. He wears sturdy sandals and a broad hat tied at his neck. He may be seeking harvest work among the vineyards, repairing walls on a country estate, or joining a building crew in the next town. Seasonal labor draws people along roads just as surely as official orders do. Near the gatehouse stands a different sort of traveler. His tunic is clean, his baggage compact, and a sealed packet rests inside a leather case. He is accompanied by an attendant and has documents ready to show if asked. Perhaps he is carrying instructions for a magistrate, accounts from an estate, or records required by an office farther along the route. Roman government depends upon messages moving between towns, provincial centers, military posts, ports, and distant administrative households. The roads support that government, and they also support armies. Soldiers march along them when units are transferred. Officers travel under orders. Supplies move toward forts and camps. Yet on an ordinary morning such as this one, most visible movement is quieter. A farmer brings produce to market. A craft worker carries finished goods. A daughter visits her parents. A student travels toward a teacher. A witness goes to a legal hearing. A household servant runs an errand between estates. Other travelers may be going to markets or festivals. Some are occupied with legal or financial business. Some travel for education, family obligations, military duty, government work, or the hope of finding employment in another place. Some journeys lead toward temples. The traveler may wish to fulfill a religious vow, offer thanks at a shrine, consult an oracle, or seek help at a sanctuary associated with healing. The modern word pilgrimage can be useful for such travel, but Roman religious journeys take many forms. One may be a brief visit to a local sacred place. Another may last many days and end at a famous temple, healing center, or great public festival. All these travelers share the road, though they do not share it equally. A wealthy official might travel with servants, animals, letters of authority, and arrangements made in advance. A merchant of means may own a wagon and hire drivers or guards. A poorer traveler may carry everything on foot and depend upon inexpensive food, acquaintances, or simple roadside shelter. Enslaved attendants may travel because they have been ordered to accompany a household, transport goods, deliver messages, or perform work at the destination. Comfort, choice, and freedom are not distributed evenly in the Roman world. Even speed depends upon more than distance. It depends on the season and weather. It depends on the condition of the road, the health of the animals, and the resources available to the traveler. An urgent official messenger with access to fresh mounts may cover ground very differently from a family walking beside a loaded cart. For most people at the gate this morning, there is no reason to hurry. The useful pace is the pace that can be maintained. The light begins to gather above the roofs. Tiles that appeared almost black now become muted red and brown. The upper stones of the gate take on a pale golden edge. Swallows pass through the open space between the towers, turning in the cool air. From deeper within the town comes the steady sound of shutters opening and stalls being prepared. Our traveler crosses the threshold. Outside the wall, the air feels wider. The stable odors of the town give way to damp earth, roadside grass, and the dry sweetness of olive leaves. Vineyards lie beyond the nearby fields, their rows still covered by shadow. The afternoon will be warm, and dust will rise beneath feet and wheels. For now, the morning remains cool enough for a cloak. Along one side of the road stand several memorials. One is a low stone enclosure. Another has a carved panel, weathered until the figures are soft at the edges. A taller monument catches the early light on its upper face, while its long shadow reaches across the verge. Roman burials are generally placed outside a town's sacred or legal boundary. Graves and memorials may therefore appear beyond the gate. On some important approaches, especially near wealthy cities in Italy, elaborate tombs may line the road for some distance. Their inscriptions and carved facades present family names and public memory to everyone who passes. This road is less magnificent. Its memorials are scattered, with open ground between them. Such arrangements vary widely. Not every road outside every town is lined with memorials. A traveler leaving a settlement in Gaul, Britain, North Africa, Egypt, the Balkans, or the eastern provinces might encounter very different buildings, plants, customs, surfaces, and patterns of settlement. Even neighboring towns do not always resemble one another. The journey beginning here belongs to no single recorded person. It is a composite journey made from many ordinary experiences of the Roman imperial centuries, broadly between the 2nd and early 4th centuries of the Common Era. Its landscape is a temperate Mediterranean one, with olives, vines, warm afternoons, stone crossings, dust in dry weather, and cool evenings. Elsewhere in the Roman world, travelers face northern rain, desert heat, broad river valleys, forest tracks, mountain snow, or long stretches between reliable sources of water. Roads and travel customs vary from one province to another, and they change over time. But this morning's road is mild. The official traveler with the leather case goes ahead at a purposeful pace. The family follows more slowly, keeping near its little cart. The laborer walks alone for a while, then falls into step beside a mule driver. Farmers pass in the opposite direction, bringing modest loads toward the open gate. Low greetings are exchanged. A hand is raised, a head inclines. No one needs to know every destination. The traveler settles into a rhythm that can be maintained for hours. The town remains close enough that individual rooftops are still visible. Behind them, a thin line of bakery smoke rises into the brightening sky. It becomes fainter as it climbs, until it is almost impossible to distinguish from the pale morning air. From here, the road does not seem vast. It is simply the firm way beneath one pair of feet, extending past fields and small buildings toward the next turn. Yet it belongs to a much larger web. Roads link farms to markets, towns to ports, military posts to provincial capitals, and local communities to the distant machinery of imperial rule. Along them move taxes and letters, orders and petitions, grain and pottery, news and rumors, invitations and family messages. They also carry people whose names will never be written into a history. A mason looking for work, a child visiting an aunt, a woman taking cloth to sell, an old soldier returning to familiar country, a servant delivering a parcel, a farmer walking home with an empty basket. Their journeys may be short or long. Some will return by evening, others will sleep beneath an unfamiliar roof. A few will continue for many days, watching the plants, speech, food, and buildings slowly change around them. Our traveler's destination is still several stages away. There will be places to pause, water to find, and shelter to arrange. There may be stretches shared with strangers, and long intervals when only hoofbeats, wheels, birds, and the quiet sound of walking accompany the road. The sun has not yet cleared the low hills, but the sky above them is bright. Shadows from the roadside memorials lie long and still. Hoofbeats sound softly behind, followed by the patient turning of a cartwheel. A donkey's harness gives a small creak. Then the sounds settle again into the open air. Soon the gate begins to look smaller. The voices near it blend into the distance, and the wall becomes a pale line above the fields. Ahead, the road rises gently, its center higher than the ground to either side. Shallow edges guide water away from the traveled surface. Stones appear beneath the gravel, where wheels have worn narrow tracks. Olive leaves stir beside the verge. Beyond them, vineyard rows follow the shape of the land. The morning coolness lingers in the lower ground, while the first sunlight touches the road ahead. As the town recedes, attention settles naturally upon the road itself, upon its raised line, its drainage edges, and its carefully chosen course through the waking landscape. Chapter 2. How a Roman Road Was Made. Beyond the last roadside memorials, the open country widens. Fields lie on either side of the traveler, some newly turned, others holding rows of vines or young grain. The road crosses them as a long, pale band. In the clear morning light, its shape becomes easier to see. It does not lie level with the fields. Its center rises gently, and the whole road rests a little above the neighboring ground. The Romans call such a raised embankment an agger. In some places, an agger may be broad and clearly built up. In others, it is only a modest lift beneath the feet. Here, it is high enough for the traveler to look down into shallow ditches running along either side. An earlier shower has left a narrow thread of water in one ditch. It gathers quietly around reeds and pale pebbles instead of spreading across the road. The surface underfoot is already dry. This simple difference matters. Rain is one of the patient enemies of any traveled way. When water remains on a road, wheels press it into the earth. Hooves deepen the soft places. Mud fills the ruts, and the next passing wagon makes them deeper still. By raising the road and giving water somewhere else to go, builders make the route more dependable. A slight crown along the road's surface also encourages rainwater to flow toward the edges. The ditches receive the runoff, carrying it away from the wheel tracks. Earth and stone dug from those same ditches may even have helped provide material for building up the road. The route is not free from puddles, loose stones, or winter mud. No construction can remove weather from a journey, yet good drainage can turn an impassable stretch into one that is merely slow. The traveler remembers the street within the town walls. There, broad fitted stones formed the pavement. Their surfaces had been polished by sandals, hooves, and wheels. Narrow seams between them held dust from many seasons. Those heavy paving slabs seemed permanent, and it would be easy to imagine that every Roman road looked the same. But this country road does not. Its surface is made mostly of compacted gravel and crushed local stone. The color changes subtly as the traveler goes on, from pale gray to a warmer brown. Small stones click beneath the iron rims of cartwheels. Sandals disturb a little dust, which settles again behind each step. Many rural Roman roads were like this. They were firm, carefully shaped, and surfaced with gravel rather than great fitted slabs. Large paving stones were more characteristic of some urban streets, approaches to towns, monumental routes, and places where local conditions favored their use. Elsewhere, a well-compacted surface of smaller stone could be easier to build, simpler to repair, and entirely suitable for steady traffic. Beneath the visible gravel, the road has another history. Builders may first have cleared and shaped the route, cutting into a slope where necessary, or raising a low place with earth and stone. Foundations could include compacted soil, rubble, broken rock, or larger stones. Above these came finer material pressed down until it formed a durable surface for feet, hooves, and wheels. There was no single plan followed in exactly the same way across every province in every century. Roman roads are sometimes described as having 4 neat layers, each with a fixed and perfectly ordered name. Real construction was more varied. It depended on the soil, the climate, the importance of the route, the materials nearby, and the labor and resources available. In one region, builders might use flint. In another, limestone or dark basalt. Gravel and sand could come from riverbeds. Broken stone might be carried from a nearby quarry. Timber was useful where the ground was wet or where a crossing needed wooden supports. Roman road building was often practical before it was impressive. A sound travels across the fields ahead. It is a low, repeated thud, followed by the soft scrape of a shovel. The traveler soon reaches a small maintenance crew working beside the road. A section of the ditch has filled with silt, leaves, and fallen earth. 2 workers clear it with iron tools, lifting the damp material onto the bank. Farther along, baskets of gravel stand beside a worn hollow in the road. One worker tips a basket slowly. The stones pour out with a dry whisper. Another spreads them across the damaged surface. 2 more raise and lower heavy wooden rammers, compacting the fresh material into place. Their movements are measured rather than hurried. Pale dust covers their hands and clings to the folds of their clothing. Traffic passes carefully along the open half of the road. A mule lowers its head at the unfamiliar sound, then continues. A cartwheel rolls over the older gravel, making small stones click and shift beneath its iron rim. Roads endure because people continue to work on them. Ditches must be cleared. Worn surfaces need fresh gravel. Flood damage has to be filled. Retaining walls loosen. Timber decays. Bridges require attention. Even a strongly built road can be softened by rain, damaged by frost, or pressed into ruts by repeated wheels. Responsibility for this work varied by place and period. A municipality might oversee a road near its town. Government officials could arrange maintenance on an important route. Contractors might supply materials and workers. Landowners or local communities might be required to contribute labor or resources. Soldiers sometimes built and repaired roads, especially where military movement mattered. The labor itself was equally varied. Paid workers, contractors, crews, soldiers, enslaved people, and members of local communities could all take part. No single group built every Roman road, just as no single authority maintained them all. The traveler gives the workers room and passes the fresh gravel. For several steps, the surface feels softer beneath the sandals, then it becomes firm again, and the steady rhythm of walking returns. In the distance, a line of stakes stands across an open stretch. The thin wooden markers appear almost to point toward a ridge beneath the morning sky. Surveyors use sighting instruments and carefully placed markers to establish direction and height. Some instruments help set straight lines. Others help determine levels or measure changes in the ground. Across open country, where no obstacle required another course, Roman roads could run notably straight. A direct route saved distance and made the line of travel clear. From one marker, a surveyor could sight toward the next, extending the planned road across the landscape. Yet straightness was not an absolute rule. As the traveler nears the ridge, the road begins to curve. It does not climb directly over the steepest ground. Instead, it bends along the lower slope. A low retaining wall supports the outer edge. Its stones are not finely decorated. They are simply fitted well enough to hold the bank in place. Roads might bend to follow a valley, find a practical river crossing, avoid unstable ground, respect property boundaries, or reach an important settlement. Engineers sometimes created entirely new routes. At other times they improved older paths that people had followed long before Roman authority arrived. An ancient track could be widened, drained, resurfaced, or joined to a larger network. The resulting road was neither a rigid line laid without regard for the land, nor a wandering trail without a plan. It was a quiet negotiation between intended direction and the country itself. Above the fields, two birds circle slowly in the warming air. Their shadows pass over the road and disappear into the grass. At the bottom of the slope, a narrow stream crosses the route. The crossing is modest. There is no high arch and no carved inscription. Water passes through a stone-lined culvert beneath the road, while the raised surface continues overhead. Elsewhere, a larger river might require a bridge. Some Roman bridges were built with stone arches, and a number have survived well enough to reveal the care of their construction. Yet these impressive remains do not represent every crossing. Timber bridges were also used, as were structures combining stone supports with wooden upper sections. The design depended on the river, the available materials, and local needs. On wet or unstable ground, workers might drive timber piles into soft soil, lay down brushwood, or build a raised causeway. In one district, stone was plentiful. In another, timber was easier to obtain. A road crossing dry hills required different preparation from one passing through a marshy plain. The method changed with the place. The traveler pauses near the culvert. Rainwater from the earlier shower still trickles through it, carrying tiny leaves beneath the road. On the far side, the ditch continues, guiding runoff away from the traveled surface. Such details are easy to overlook. They lack the grandeur of a city gate or a great stone bridge, yet they are part of what makes a road useful from one season to another. A wagon approaches from behind, and the traveler steps toward the edge. The wagon is heavily loaded, and its pace is slow. Its wheels have iron rims, strong but unforgiving. Each small hollow produces a mild creak from the wooden frame. The driver watches the ground ahead, choosing the smoother track where many earlier wheels have already passed. Even good engineering does not make travel effortless. Loose gravel shifts. Dust rises in dry weather. Ruts form where carts follow the same line. On steep ground, animals tire. In winter, the edges may soften. Heavy rain can fill a ditch faster than it drains, and a damaged bridge may delay travelers until repairs are made. The advantage of the road is not that it removes every difficulty. It makes those difficulties more manageable. Its raised surface reduces deep mud. Its crown and ditches carry away much of the rain. Its bridges, causeways, and culverts help travelers cross troublesome ground. Its visible course makes the direction easier to follow. And because the road can be repaired, small failures need not become permanent ones. The wagon goes on, leaving a soft veil of dust behind it. When the air clears, the traveler sees where the iron rims have pressed fresh lines into the newly maintained gravel. These marks will be softened by more wheels, more hooves, and perhaps another visit from a work crew. Behind, the dull sound of the rammers grows faint. Ahead, the road crosses another field. It straightens where the ground allows, then disappears briefly behind a low fold in the land. The traveler follows at an even pace. Underfoot lies no perfect monument, unchanged from the day of its making. The road is a working thing. It has been surveyed, built, worn, cleared, patched, and built again. It carries the marks of local stone, local weather, and many different hands. Its strength comes partly from its foundations, and partly from the continuing care that keeps water moving and wheels turning. Beyond the fold of ground, something pale stands beside the road. At first, it resembles a narrow post. As the traveler draws nearer, it resolves into a stone marker, upright against the fields, with weathered letters cut into its face. The repaired stretch is now behind. The traveler's steps settle once more into their quiet rhythm, while the pale stone ahead offers a measure of the distance already traveled, and a reminder of the distance still to come. Chapter 3: Milestones and Measures. The pale stone stands a little taller than the traveler's shoulder. Its upper edge has been rounded by weather, while its base disappears into a fringe of dry grass. Dust has gathered in the shallow places around it. On the shaded side, a thin covering of gray-green lichen softens the lower lines of the inscription, making stone and earth seem slowly to blend together. The traveler steps away from the firm center of the road and pauses beside it. For a moment, there's only the quiet sound of the countryside. Insects move among the grasses, a bird calls from a hedge. Somewhere beyond the low fold of land comes the faint creak of a cart. The work crew at the repaired stretch can no longer be heard. Here the road lies still beneath the morning light. The traveler places a hand against the marker and runs 2 fingers over the carved letters. Some remain sharp enough to follow. Others have been worn smooth by rain, wind, and perhaps by many hands making the same thoughtful gesture. The inscription begins with the name and titles of an emperor. To a modern traveler, this may seem an unusual place to begin. Someone standing beside a road might wish first to know how far it is to the next town, which branch to take, or where water can be found. Yet a Roman milestone was not simply a directional sign. It could be practical, certainly, but it also belonged to the public language of authority and remembrance. An emperor's name might announce that a road had been built, restored, or repaired under his rule. The stone could commemorate official care for the route. Even when the actual work had been organized by provincial officials, military units, local communities, laborers, and skilled builders, the inscription might place the emperor at the center of the achievement. So the named ruler is part of the stone's meaning, even when the traveler's chief concern is the smaller group of marks giving a distance. The traveler bends slightly, brushes away a little dust, and studies them. A Roman mile was counted as 1,000 Roman paces. A pace meant a double step, from the moment one foot moved forward until that same foot came forward again. In modern measurement, the Roman mile was about 1.48 kilometers, or roughly 0.92 of a modern statute mile. In practice, however, measurement was not perfectly uniform in every place and every period. Roads were surveyed, built, marked, repaired, and measured by people. Local customs, surveying methods, later alterations, and simple mistakes could all make a difference. For someone traveling on foot, distance had another kind of meaning as well. A mile was not only a number carved into stone, it was a certain length of effort beneath the sun. It was the sound of sandals on gravel, the regular rise and fall of shoulders beneath a bundle, and the gradual change of fields, walls, trees, and hedges beside the road. A rider might understand the same mile through the rhythm of a horse. A wagon driver might judge it by the condition of the track, the weight of the load, the strain upon the axle, and the strength of the animals. On level ground, a mile could pass easily. On a steep, muddy, or damaged road, it might seem much longer. Nor did every milestone count outward from Rome. Some marked distances along routes connected with the capital. Others counted from a city, an official beginning point, a provincial boundary, or another recognized place. A traveler had to understand what the number referred to. Without that knowledge, even a neatly carved inscription could leave room for uncertainty. This stone appears to count from the city gate left behind at dawn. Its number agrees closely enough with the traveler's sense of the morning. That agreement is quietly reassuring. The correct road has been followed. The pace has been steady. The next named stopping place still lies ahead. Yet the stone does not point toward it with an arrow. It does not show every junction or describe each turn. Its most carefully carved lines are devoted to imperial titles, while the information wanted by a dusty traveler occupies only a modest place below. Fortunately, the traveler is not entirely dependent upon the stone. Protected among the party's belongings, beneath folded cloth and a little food for the road, lies a written route list. It belongs to a well-prepared household traveling in the same direction. Before leaving the town, the stages for the day were read aloud and repeated so that more than one person would remember them. The list gives the names of towns, settlements, road stations, and approximate distances in sequence. Such a list is called an itinerary. It is not a map in the modern sense. It does not show every field, hill, or stream, nor does it reproduce the shape of the countryside as though seen from above. Instead, it tells a traveler what comes next: a city, then a station, then a river crossing, after that a settlement, beyond the settlement, another station, and eventually a larger town. The order itself is useful. A named place ahead can be reassuring, even when the stated number of miles does not settle every uncertainty. A name suggests that there may be roofs, wells, food for animals, or people who know the roads beyond. Some Roman route lists have survived through later copies. One compilation, now known as the Antonine Itinerary, preserves many routes and distances across the empire. It should not be imagined as a personal map carried by one particular traveler. It is a compilation of route information, setting out long sequences of places and the distances between them. Another famous survival, known as the Peutinger map, comes down through a medieval copy of a late antique route representation. Its lands are stretched into a long, narrow form. Seas, rivers, cities, stations, and roads appear, but the geography is not arranged according to accurate modern shape or scale. What matters most is connection. One can follow which roads join, which stations succeed one another, and how the network continues across distant regions. The Roman world could be represented in this way as a chain of destinations rather than as a landscape seen accurately from the sky. Ordinary travelers, however, did not generally unfold precise modern-looking maps at every crossing. Many carried no written guide at all. They traveled by memory, habit, spoken directions, and familiar landmarks. Even those with an itinerary still needed local knowledge. A list might say that one settlement stood 12 miles beyond another, yet fail to explain which fork to choose after a shrine. It might omit a seasonal stream, or say nothing about a bridge being repaired. A distance might be measured from a point that was not obvious to a newcomer. A road could be clear across open country and confusing near a cluster of farms. For this reason, knowledge passed quietly from person to person all along the way. Travelers asked questions at city gates before setting out. They asked at farms, river crossings, junctions, roadside workshops, shrines, inns, market stalls, and other roadside businesses. A gatekeeper might know which route had recently flooded. A mule driver might know where the next dependable water could be found. A farmer might describe a turning through the shape of the land rather than through any written name. As the traveler remains beside the milestone, a local farmer approaches along the edge of the field. He carries a wooden tool over one shoulder and walks with the unhurried certainty of someone who knows every rise and hollow nearby. The traveler offers a greeting and asks about the next settlement and whether water can be found before reaching it. The farmer rests the tool against his leg. He does not answer with a careful number of miles. Instead, he points along the road. "Continue beyond the low ridge," he explains. "Look for a small shrine beneath 2 trees. The road bends there toward a shallow stream. The settlement stands on the farther side. Water can be found before the bridge, though the bank is firmer a little upstream. These directions are simple, yet they add more to the journey than a number alone could provide. The ridge, the shrine, the paired trees, and the stream become a sequence to watch for. Each one will confirm that the road is still the right one." The traveler repeats the landmarks. The farmer nods, lifts his tool again, and crosses into the field. Soon his footsteps are hidden by the grass. The traveler looks once more at the milestone, then toward the protected route list among the baggage. Stone, writing, and spoken knowledge agree well enough. Together they form a useful guide, though none is complete by itself. Time, too, is measured through several different signs. The Romans divided daylight into 12 hours, but these were seasonal hours, rather than fixed periods of equal modern length throughout the year. In summer, when daylight lasted longer, each daytime hour was longer. In winter, each was shorter. Noon remained the middle of the daylight span, but the hours before and after it expanded or contracted with the season. Time therefore had a softer quality than the steady ticking of a modern clock. It belonged partly to the sky and partly to the changing season. Portable sundials existed. Some were small enough to be carried on a journey, yet they required sunlight, suitable adjustment, knowledge of their use, and access to such an object in the first place. They could be useful possessions, but they were not possessions available to everyone. Most travelers judged the passing day more simply. They watched the sun rise and climb. They noticed the direction and length of shadows. They knew familiar times for meals, work, and rest. They observed when animals began to tire or seek water. They felt the morning coolness leave the air, and later sensed the first return of evening softness. Beside the milestone, the traveler studies the shadow cast by the stone. It is shorter than it would have been when the city gate opened behind them, though it still leans clearly toward the west. The sun has risen higher, but midday has not yet arrived. This is enough. There is time to reach the ridge, the shrine, and perhaps the stream, before pausing for food. If the road remains dry and even, the next settlement should be reached with ample daylight left. Yet the traveler does not treat that expectation as a promise. A loose sandal strap might require a pause. An animal could tire sooner than expected. A crossing might be difficult, or a useful conversation at a farm might delay the party for a little while. The road has its own quiet influence upon every plan. Its measures become easier to understand. After several days, a traveler begins to learn how far a morning's walk feels. The body starts to recognize a mile without counting every pace. The eye becomes better at judging the distance to a ridge. The changing angle of sunlight becomes a familiar guide. The behavior of others helps as well. Farmers may be seen leaving or returning to fields. Herds may begin turning toward water. Roadside sellers may arrange their goods in the morning and gather them again as the day declines. Meal smoke rising from a distant settlement can offer another suggestion of the hour. No single sign is exact, yet several signs together can be trusted. The traveler takes a drink and waits while the route list is checked once more. Its folds have softened through use, and its written names are kept protected among the party's belongings. Then, the cloth is closed around it, and the bag is fastened again. The milestone remains beside the road. It holds the emperor's titles, a record of construction or repair, and a useful but imperfect number. Dust rests at its base. Lichen continues its slow work over the lower letters. Long after this morning's travelers have passed, the stone will still stand here, offering the same mixture of information, ceremony, and uncertainty to those who pause beside it. The traveler returns to the road. Before long, the first low ridge draws nearer. Beyond it, two treetops rise together against the sky. They may be the pair beside the shrine the farmer described. The sight is modest, but reassuring. Spoken directions are beginning to take shape in the visible land. The sun climbs a little higher. The milestone recedes behind, first becoming a pale pillar beside the grass, then a narrow mark against the fields. Ahead, other figures gradually come into clearer view. Some are walking. Some lead animals laden with baskets and bundles. A few ride, while others keep pace beside slow wagons. They all follow the same broad route, yet each moves according to work, resources, strength, and purpose. And each carries a different understanding of distance. For one, the next settlement is a place to sell goods. For another, it is only a brief halt before the road continues. For someone on foot, it may still feel far away. For a rider with a fresh animal, it may seem close. Their separate rhythms begin to mingle upon the road, as the traveler moves quietly onward beneath the rising sun. Chapter 4. The Many People on the Road. As the traveler comes down from the low ridge, the road gathers voices. At first, they are only small sounds carried through the morning air. Leather soles press against gravel. Iron hobnails tap upon exposed stone. Cartwheels make a low wooden murmur, interrupted now and then by the soft complaint of an axle. Bare hooves land with a hollow rhythm. Somewhere ahead, a mule bell gives a single patient note. Between these sounds comes the quiet swish of wool and linen as people walk. The road does not belong to one kind of traveler. It carries those who are going far and those who will return home before evening. Farmers take produce to nearby markets. Merchants and their agents travel between settlements. Muleteers, wagon drivers, craftspeople, seasonal workers, porters, and messengers follow the same route. So do soldiers, imperial and provincial officials, couriers, religious travelers, freed people conducting business, enslaved attendants, and families moving together. They share the road, though not on equal terms. The first person the traveler overtakes is an older farmer walking near the edge of the road. He carries a shallow basket containing fruit and small bundles of herbs tied with thread. A cloth has been laid over part of the basket to shade the tender leaves. His journey is a modest one. He is bound for a settlement beyond the next bend, where he hopes to sell what he has gathered. He has no wagon and no pack animal. The basket is balanced against his hip, and every so often he changes hands. They exchange a greeting. The farmer's Latin has the rounded sounds of the region. The traveler's speech carries the traces of another place, but they understand enough. On roads across the Roman world, Latin might be heard beside Greek and beside many regional languages. A person passing through several communities could hear familiar words spoken in unfamiliar accents. Where vocabulary failed, gesture often served. A finger pointed toward a turning, a hand shaped like a cup could ask about water, a glance toward the sky might begin an exchange about the weather. A few routine phrases, joined with shared practical knowledge, could carry travelers through many ordinary encounters. The farmer nods toward the brightening sky and then toward the road ahead. It is enough to suggest that the day will be warm and that the way is clear. Soon the traveler moves onward, while the farmer continues at the careful pace required by his basket. His footsteps remain audible for a little while, and then merge into the wider rhythm of the road. Farther ahead, a muleteer is adjusting a load. His two mules stand quietly in the narrow shade of a tree. Each carries a wooden frame from which several clay amphorae are suspended. The vessels have been cushioned with straw and woven fiber so that they do not strike against one another as the animals walk. The muleteer tests every binding with practiced hands. He tightens one rope, loosens another, and presses his palm beneath a strap to make sure that it is not rubbing against the animal's skin. A badly balanced burden can tire a mule and cause injury. A carefully arranged one moves with the animal instead of pulling unevenly against it. Donkeys and mules are especially valuable on journeys like this. They are well suited to difficult terrain and can carry useful loads over long distances. Even so, they require water, fodder, rest, and attention. The muleteer knows the shape of each animal's back and notices every shift of weight. One of the mules wears a small bell. It rings when the animal lowers its head, then falls silent again. Most small-scale traffic on the road looks more like this than like an enormous merchant caravan. A few loaded animals, a single wagon, or a merchant traveling with a small number of assistants would be more common than a vast train of goods stretching across the countryside. Trade moves in many modest portions, each following its own section of the route. The traveler gives the muleteer room to work. There is no clearly documented rule across the whole Roman Empire requiring travelers to keep to one fixed side of the road. People choose their course according to ruts, shade, mud, animals, approaching carts, and local custom. Courtesy is practical. A person on foot steps aside for a broad wagon. A driver avoids a soft shoulder where the wheels might sink. Two laden animals pass wherever the surface is safest. Everyone watches the space ahead and adjusts. Soon a cart approaches, drawn by two oxen. The oxen are strong enough to pull a heavy wagon, but they move slowly. Their broad shoulders rise and fall beneath the yoke. Behind them the driver walks with a guiding stick held loosely at his side. The wheels turn with patient regularity. Oxen are useful when weight matters more than speed. A journey made with them must allow time for their steady pace. Distance is not experienced in the same way by everyone. To a mounted courier, the next stopping place may feel near. To an ox driver, it may be most of a day away. A family follows behind the cart, using its slow progress as a guide. Two adults carry bundles, and a child walks between them, holding the end of a folded cloak. Dust has gathered at the hems of their clothes. Whenever faster travelers pass, the family draws a little closer together. Their shoes show signs of careful preparation. One adult wears sturdy leather footwear with a repaired seam across the toe. The other has a sandal reinforced by an extra strip around the heel. Footwear on Roman roads varies widely. There are sturdy leather shoes, hobnailed soles, sandals, boots, and more decorative shoes. Socks are also known. A traveler might own several kinds of footwear, or only the pair currently being worn, patched repeatedly, because it must last. For someone walking a long distance, a repaired seam matters. A loose sole can shape an entire day. So can a blister, a torn strap, or a stone lodged beneath the foot. Ordinary preparation often appears in small things: cord carried for repairs, cloth wrapped around a tender heel, or a worn shoe carefully tightened before the next mile. Travelers with fewer resources must judge every stop with care. They may walk, carry their own bundles, and arrange the journey around affordable food and lodging. A night's shelter may depend upon an acquaintance, a relative, or a connection made through work. Water, shade, and the condition of one pair of shoes can determine the rhythm of the day. Before long, hoofbeats approach from behind. A rider passes at a measured pace. The horse is alert, but neither horse nor rider appears entirely comfortable. The rider shifts position and rolls one shoulder, easing the stiffness that comes after hours of travel. Riding can save time and spare the feet, yet it is not effortless. A horse must be watered, fed, rested, and handled carefully. Its hooves need attention, and any sign of lameness must be taken seriously. Speed used too freely today may become delay tomorrow. The rider slows near a roadside water source. While the horse drinks, the rider runs a hand down one foreleg and gently lifts the hoof for inspection. Even a valuable animal depends upon quiet, ordinary care. Behind the rider comes a wealthier traveling party. Its means are visible without announcement. Attendants lead spare animals. Rolled bedding is secured among the baggage, and provisions hang in covered baskets. The principal traveler rides, while a companion remains close enough for conversation. Somewhere among their belongings, there may be letters of introduction to people farther along the route. Spare animals allow the party to divide burdens and continue when one mount needs rest. Servants and attendants manage provisions, bedding, and equipment. Companions or escorts make the group larger and more self-sufficient. Comfort remains relative. Dust settles on wealthy clothing as readily as on poor. Heat reaches everyone, and rough ground still jars the body. Yet wealth provides choices. It can affect when a traveler stops, what food is available, where the night is spent, and how easily a damaged shoe, lost provision, or tired animal can be replaced. A solitary walker has fewer choices. That traveler must protect strength, judge the distance to water, and avoid wasting food. A missed-stopping place may mean several more miles on tired feet. The wealthy party can spread its needs among many people and animals. The walker carries the journey alone. One attendant in the wealthier group manages a pack animal with particular skill. A sealed letter is secured beneath his cloak, protected from dust. He is enslaved and has been entrusted with goods, money, and correspondence belonging to the household. Enslaved people could travel as attendants or agents. They might carry letters, supervise animals, handle money, or take responsibility for valuable goods. Such responsibilities did not make them free. Movement along the road did not mean equal control over the destination, the purpose, or the conditions of the journey. The attendant notices that one strap has begun to slip. With a quiet word, he halts the animal. His hands move quickly and carefully, restoring the balance of the load before the party continues. His competence is clear, even though the decision that brought him onto the road was not his own. A little later, two freed people pass while discussing business. Their conversation moves between prices, a delivery, and the reliability of someone waiting in the next town. Like merchants, agents, and craftspeople, they use the road as part of their working lives. Other figures pass more briefly. A craftsperson carries a wrapped set of tools. Several laborers are traveling towards seasonal work. A religious traveler asks whether a shrine lies before or after the next stream. A porter bends beneath a compact but heavy bundle, while a merchant's agent checks the knots whenever they pause. A messenger hurries by with little baggage. Farther behind comes a provincial official, traveling at a more deliberate pace. Each has a different reason to be on the road, and each measures the day according to a different obligation. Then come three soldiers, though they do not resemble a grand parade. One wears part of his military equipment, while the others have packed much of theirs for easier travel. They may be moving between assignments, traveling on administrative business, returning to a unit, or handling some other routine duty. Soldiers on Roman roads are not always fully equipped legionaries marching in formation. They may travel alone, in small groups, on transfer, or as part of a larger unit. On this morning, these three simply move among the other travelers. Their hobnailed footwear makes a firm pattern against the road. The sound grows louder, draws level, and gradually recedes. Throughout the morning, the road continues to arrange and rearrange its travelers. Faster groups overtake slower ones. Those on foot pass a wagon halted, while its driver checks a wheel. A muleteer pauses to adjust a load and later catches up again. A family rests in the shade, then returns to the road after the dust is settled. Brief greetings pass in Latin, Greek, and regional speech. Some are clear to everyone. Others depend on familiar phrases, gestures, and patient repetition. Sometimes there is only a nod. No two journeys have quite the same measure. Health, weather, status, legal condition, money, and access to animals all alter the experience of distance. One traveler can pay for shelter when clouds gather. Another must continue toward the home of an acquaintance. One can replace damaged footwear. Another sits beside the road with needle and cord, repairing a strap before taking another step. The sounds continue beneath the rising sun. Leather soles brush the gravel. Hobnails click against stone. Hooves beat softly, bells answer, and cart wheels follow the old ruts. By late morning, these scattered rhythms begin to converge. Ahead stands a practical roadside compound, with a broad entrance and a yard beyond. Troughs line one wall. An animal is being watered while another waits in the shade. A groom examines a harness beneath an awning. Near the gate, an official-looking rider presents a document to the keeper. The rider's mount is breathing heavily but evenly. Inside the yard, a fresh animal is already being prepared. Footsteps, bells, wheels, and hooves continue past the entrance, but some travelers turn toward it. The road has brought them to a place made not merely for pausing, but for changing animals and supporting authorized journeys. As the traveler approaches, the loose, mingled rhythm of the road begins to give way to the more regulated order of the changing station. Chapter 5. A Changing Station. The road enters the changing station through a broad opening in a low wall. Beyond the brightness of late morning, the entrance feels cool and shaded. At first, the traveler sees only quiet shapes, a stable doorway, a stone trough, and a wagon beneath an awning. Then the details become clear. A groom pours water into the trough, darkening the stone around its rim. Nearby, another worker loosens a warm leather harness from a horse whose sides rise and fall steadily. Once the harness is removed, the groom rubs down the animal with long, patient strokes. The station carries the mingled scents of hay, leather, road dust, and damp stone. Animals shift behind the stable wall. A hoof touches the floor, a stall rail creaks, and harness rings knock gently together as they are placed upon a peg. This is a mutatio, a changing station associated with official travel. Such stations are especially well documented in the later Roman Empire, although the imperial transport system had much earlier beginnings. From the reign of Augustus, arrangements developed to carry official messages and authorize travelers along Roman roads. The system changed over time. Its rules, names, buildings, and local practices varied between centuries and regions. A station on a heavily traveled road might differ greatly from one in a distant province. Its central purpose, however, remained practical. A mutatio helped change or care for animals, and where facilities allowed, supported the vehicles traveling with them. Later Romans called the evolving imperial transport network the cursus publicus. Despite its name, it was not equally open to everyone. Horses and wagons did not wait for any passerby who wished to travel faster. The system existed chiefly for government business, carrying authorized officials, reports, orders, and dispatches across long distances. A private traveler might pause nearby. Depending on the place and the demands of the day, water, advice, or simple assistance might be available. A loose strap might be repaired for payment. Yet a private traveler could not claim a rested horse merely because the road was long. Animals reserved for official journeys were limited, and access depended upon authorization. The official-looking rider seen from the road has now dismounted. His tired mount drinks in steady swallows, lifting its head occasionally as water falls from its mouth and taps against the trough. Beneath an awning, the rider stands beside a plain desk while a clerk examines a folded document. The clerk studies the writing and the marks showing who issued it. Official warrants could be called diplomata or evectionees. Their form and use varied, but their purpose was practical. A warrant might identify the authorized traveler, the route, and the period for which permission remained valid. It could also specify the animals, vehicles, and services the bearer was entitled to request. Such limits mattered. A station held only so much fodder, and its stalls sheltered only so many animals. Horses and mules needed time to drink, eat, and recover. Wheels wore on rough roads, harness fittings loosened, and leather straps stretched beneath repeated strain. Every journey placed another demand upon finite supplies. Even a properly authorized traveler might have to wait. Today, one suitable horse is being prepared, while another must rest. 2 mules are needed for a wagon expected later. A third animal has only recently returned and remains warm beneath its coat. A groom checks its leg and hoof, then decides it is not ready to leave again. The rider accepts this with a nod. His warrant grants access to the system, but it cannot produce a rested animal where none is available. He sits on a wooden bench beside the wall, keeping a leather bag close. Waiting, after all, is part of travel. Across the yard, a wheelwright bends beside a wagon. Nothing has broken, but a fitting loosened during the morning's journey. He taps it, pauses to listen, and places a tool beneath the rim. A little careful attention here may prevent a much longer delay farther along the road. Larger stations could draw upon several kinds of skilled workers: grooms, attendants familiar with animal care, wheelwrights, harness repairers, and administrators responsible for records and supplies. Not every mutatio had all these workers. A small station might offer only stables, water, fodder, and basic assistance, while one on an important route might manage a steady passage of authorized riders and vehicles. Luxury was not the purpose. A mutatio might provide shelter and somewhere to wait, but a traveler seeking a proper meal, private room, or full night's rest would generally look to an inn, a nearby settlement, or a larger official stopping place. For now, the yard provides enough shade. The private traveler sits on a low stone ledge, breaks bread from a small bundle, and drinks a little water, while watching the station's work. Hay is carried from a storeroom, leaving dry fragments in the doorway. A worker tests each buckle on a harness. A bucket is filled at the trough and taken toward the stable. Nothing here is endless. Every measure of fodder has been grown, gathered, transported, and stored. Every animal must be fed and watered, and every worn strap or loose fitting eventually needs labor and material. Official movement depended upon resources drawn from the surrounding countryside. Towns, villages, landowners, and local communities might be required to provide animals, wagons, fodder, or labor. In some early arrangements, suppliers received compensation at rates fixed by officials, but payment did not necessarily make the obligation easy. A village had its own fields and goods to tend. An animal assigned to official service could not pull a local wagon at the same time. Fodder stored at a station was unavailable for another use, while a wheelwright repairing an official vehicle could not attend to other work. The burden could become onerous, especially when demands were frequent or poorly controlled. The system was also open to abuse. An influential traveler might demand more animals than a warrant allowed, retain them too long, or request unauthorized services. Roman authorities repeatedly tried to regulate such conduct, revealing how difficult it was to balance official movement with local resources. On this late morning, however, the work appears less dramatic than persistent. Permissions are examined, fodder measured, animals assigned or rested, and equipment repaired. The workers meet the road's needs without exhausting the station upon which it depends. A groom leads a mule from sunlight into shade and brushes away marks left by dust and harness leather. Another animal waits in a stall, its ears turning toward nearby sounds. Beyond the wall, hooves approach along the road, become clear, and soften again as an unseen traveler continues onward. The station stands between two rhythms. Outside is the road's steady forward pull. Inside is the slower rhythm of care, inspection, record-keeping, and repair. Neither can continue for long without the other. Under Augustus, official messages were carried in part by relays of young message-bearers placed at intervals. One person carried a dispatch over a section of road and handed it to the next. Written words could thus move onward without one messenger covering the entire distance. Yet every exchange separated the dispatch from someone familiar with its circumstances. A written message might arrive, while the person able to explain its origin or urgency remained far behind. Over time, the system developed toward exchanging animals and vehicles instead. A courier could remain with the dispatch while taking a fresh mount at a changing station. At the destination, that same courier could explain where the message came from, what occurred during the journey, or which details required attention. The principal relay was therefore often the animal or vehicle rather than the rider. The work in the yard makes this visible. The official rider remains the man who entered through the gate, but his tired horse is led toward a shaded stall. A rested animal is brought forward. The groom lays a folded cloth across its back, settles the saddle, draws the girth beneath its body, and checks each buckle. Even familiar work requires judgment. A warrant may authorize a horse, but a groom must decide whether that horse is ready. A document may request a wagon, but a wheelwright must know whether its wheels are sound. A schedule may encourage speed, but fodder must still be carried, and a tired mule allowed to recover. The apparent speed of official movement is assembled from modest actions. A trough must be filled, hay kept dry, a harness secured, and a wheel made sound. A clerk must examine the warrant and record what has been supplied. A groom must know which animal can travel and which must wait. Together, these actions allow a courier to cross distances that would otherwise require much longer pauses. The station does not remove the limits of bodies, materials, or daylight. It manages them. The wheelwright rises and turns the repaired wheel by hand. It moves with a low wooden murmur. At the trough, the tired horse has finished drinking and is led into the stable, where it will be rubbed down, examined, and allowed to rest. The fresh horse stands in the open yard, sunlight touching its neck and the edge of its bridle. The rider approaches, takes the reins, and looks toward the gate. The clerk returns his warrant, which he folds and places safely inside his clothing. Then a door opens in the shaded office. An attendant steps out holding a small, carefully sealed packet. For a moment, the wider business of horses, wagons, fodder, water, permissions, and repairs seems to gather around this quiet object. The station has prepared an animal. The road waits beyond the gate. Much of imperial travel depends upon practical arrangements, but some journeys are made so that words may travel. Now, in the cool shade of the changing station, a sealed message waits to be placed in a messenger's keeping. Chapter 6. Messengers and Official Dispatches. The packet rests in the attendant's open hand. It is small enough to disappear beneath a cloak, yet several careful actions have gone into preparing it. A sheet of papyrus has been folded inward, protecting the written surface. Fine string is drawn tightly around the packet. Where the string crosses, a little wax has been pressed down and marked with a seal. The impression is not large. It may carry a personal device, the sign of an office, or another symbol recognized by the receiver. Such a seal can show whose authority stands behind the message. If it is broken or disturbed, it may suggest that the packet has been opened along the way. It does not make the contents truly secret. A determined person might still discover what lies within. Yet the seal gives the document a visible sign of identity, authority, and proper handling. The writer accepts the packet with both hands. He checks the address on the outer fold, then places the message inside a narrow leather case. The case already contains another document, along with a wax tablet tied shut. He closes the flap and tucks the case securely beneath his cloak, where dust and light rain will be less likely to reach it. Around him, the changing station continues its ordinary work. A groom adjusts a strap. Another carries grain toward the stable. In the office, a clerk bends over a pale writing surface, his hand moving in small practice turns. His handwriting looks very different from the broad capital letters cut into a milestone. Monumental letters are made to endure and to be read from a distance. Their strokes are upright, formal, and carefully spaced. Everyday Roman cursive flows more quickly. It has loops, joins, shortened forms, and letters shaped by the motion of the writer's hand. To unfamiliar eyes, a hurried line may resemble reeds bending in a breeze. The clerk pauses, dips his pen, and lowers it again. Ink darkens the pale surface wherever the point touches. Writing materials differ across the Roman world according to region, purpose, cost, and availability. Papyrus is especially common around the Mediterranean and abundant in Egypt. It provides a light, practical surface for letters, accounts, petitions, and official records. Not every message requires a sheet of papyrus. On a nearby table lies a small wooden tablet. Its center is recessed and coated with wax. An assistant takes up a stylus, a simple tool with two useful ends. Its pointed tip scratches letters into the wax with a faint, dry sound. Its broad end can smooth the marks away, allowing the surface to be used again. A stylus moves quietly. A name is entered, followed by a brief record of the traveler, the animal supplied, and the authorization shown. Such records help the station keep its work in order. Animals, provisions, permissions, and departures all leave their small traces in writing. Wax tablets are useful for calculations, drafts, lists, records, and messages. Several tablets may be joined together with their waxed faces turned inward for protection. In other places, people write directly on thin leaves of wood with ink. Far to the northwest, at Vindolanda in Roman Britain, many such writing leaves have survived. They are usually about the size of a postcard and made from thin slices of alder or birch. Their inked lines preserve accounts, requests, military matters, and personal words. Some wooden leaves were scored so that they could be folded. Once closed, they might be tied with string and addressed on the outside, becoming compact letters made from materials suited to that place. Parchment or prepared leather can serve in other circumstances. Elsewhere, a fragment of pottery may become an inexpensive surface for a short note, receipt, list, or instruction. Such use depends upon local materials and customs. Across the empire, words travel on many surfaces. There is no single material used for every message. The writer's packet happens to be papyrus. Its contents may be ordinary in tone, even if they are important in consequence. Official dispatches can report the strength or movement of soldiers. They can concern taxation, accounts, supplies, appointments, legal decisions, petitions, replies, or orders from a governor or the emperor. A local disturbance may be described. A town may request a ruling. An official may explain why supplies have arrived late, why repairs are needed, or why an earlier instruction has not yet been completed. The Roman Empire is too broad for any one person to see all its provinces at once. Administration therefore depends upon reports moving inward and instructions moving outward. Roads, ships, stations, animals, clerks, and carriers make distance more manageable, though they can never remove it entirely. The man preparing to leave is one of many kinds of people who might carry an official dispatch. Some messages travel with soldiers. Others are entrusted to members of an official's staff, to imperial slaves or freedmen, or to professional couriers attached to administrative offices. The official transport infrastructure can provide authorized travelers with stages, animals, and other resources. Yet it does not employ every courier who uses those facilities. A messenger may belong to another part of the administration, or to the household and staff of the person who sent him. Nor does every message pass from one rider to another at each station. Arrangements vary by region, period, purpose, and urgency. One courier may remain responsible for a packet throughout a long journey, changing animals when permission and resources allow. Elsewhere, a message may move through a local relay. Some frontier regions use relay riders for military communication, particularly where reports and commands must travel between forts. These local arrangements are distinct from the broader imperial transport network. They are not universal, and they do not operate in exactly the same form across the empire. The written document is only part of what the courier carries. He may know the recipient by sight. He may know which entrance to use, which clerk receives dispatches, and where an official is likely to be found. He may understand the condition of the route and the circumstances behind the message. When he arrives, he can explain that a supply train has been delayed, that a witness is waiting in another town, or that the sender expects a reply before another journey begins. A letter can sometimes be brief because the bearer supplies its surrounding circumstances. The written words establish the request, report, or order. The messenger's spoken account adds what does not fit neatly upon the page. This human knowledge matters just as much in private correspondence. Private people have no universal postal counter where they can pay a standard fee and place a letter into a service open to everyone. Personal messages usually move through relationships. Near the station gate, A woman speaks with a familiar traveler who is going toward the next town. He is a merchant known to her household, and his mule carries two modest bundles of cloth. She gives him a folded letter addressed to her brother. The message contains no state command and carries no official privilege. Perhaps it tells of household business, asks when someone will return, offers greetings, or reports that a payment has been received. Its subject is ordinary, but it matters to the people waiting at either end of the road. The merchant places the letter in a dry part of his baggage. When he reaches the town, he may deliver it himself. He might also give it to a trustworthy acquaintance, or send word to the household that a letter has arrived. Friends, relatives, acquaintances, household members, enslaved messengers, merchants, and travelers already going in the right direction all help private words cross the landscape. A person with sufficient means may hire a carrier for a particular journey. Someone without such means may wait until a reliable traveler happens to depart. A letter's speed, therefore, depends not only upon the condition of the road. It depends upon opportunity, trust, and social connection. Some messages move quickly. Others wait for days in a chest, a shop, or a household before continuing. A reply may remain folded until another suitable bearer travels back. Distance is measured not merely in miles, but in available hands, familiar names, and the willingness of one person to carry words for another. The official rider checks his leather case once more. The groom brings the prepared horse into the yard. Its bridle sits properly, and its load is light. The rider runs one hand along a strap, then looks toward the road beyond the gate. There is no dramatic burst of speed. A horse cannot gallop continuously for days, and a sensible courier must preserve both animal and rider. Accounts of exceptional speed belong to exceptional circumstances. They should not be mistaken for the ordinary pace of every official message. Good progress comes from preparation, sound animals, knowledge of the route, suitable changes where they are available, and steady movement over many hours. Even an urgent dispatch must pass through a physical landscape. Animals need water, riders grow tired, roads rise and fall, and each stage takes time. The rider places one foot carefully, lifts himself into the saddle, and gathers the reins. The horse steps forward, crosses the yard, and passes through the station gate at an easy pace. Only after reaching the open road does it settle into a measured trot. The traveler watches the rider's cloak move gently behind him. Beneath it, the narrow leather case remains close to his body. Within the case, string holds folded papyrus and thin wooden leaves shut. A small wax seal preserves the mark of the sender. Around those quiet objects travels something less visible. The courier carries his memory of names, places, instructions, and circumstances. He knows where the packet began, where it must end, and something of the human matter that has set it in motion. For a while the hoofbeats sound clearly against the firmer road surface. Then the distance softens them. The rider becomes smaller between the roadside trees, following a route worn by many feet, hooves, and wheels before his own. Behind him, the station returns to its quieter tasks. In the office, the clerk takes up the wax tablet. With the broad end of the stylus, he smooths away a temporary line. The faint marks disappear beneath a few calm movements, leaving space for another name and another departure. Near the gate, the woman's private letter rests safely among the merchant's bundles. One message travels under official authority, the other moves through familiarity and goodwill. One may concern supplies, appointments, taxes, soldiers, or legal decisions. The other may carry a family greeting or a simple request. Both depend upon people carrying words beyond the place where they were written. The merchant adjusts one of his bundles and begins to lead his mule toward the road. His pace is slower than the courier's, but his letter is moving too. It will cross the same dust, pass the same milestones, and rest beneath the same afternoon light. By now the morning has strengthened. Shadows gather closely beneath carts, animals, and low walls. The traveler steps away from the station and returns to the road, while the messenger's hoofbeats become less distinct ahead. Toward noon, even important words must cross the same warm country as everyone else. Beyond the changing station, the road resumes its common rhythm. There is walking and resting, the search for shade and water, the patient care of animals, and the acceptance of the day's slower pace. Chapter 7. Midday Heat and the Slow Road. Beyond the changing station, the road enters a broad stretch of open country. The official messenger has gone ahead, his borrowed horse carrying him toward the next relay. For a little while, the traveler can still imagine the rhythm of those fading hoofbeats. Then the quieter sounds of the road return. A wooden axle creaks. A mule steps patiently through the dust. Grain shifts inside a sack, and sandals make a dry, brushing sound against the ground. The sun has climbed high enough to shorten every shadow. Trees that seemed generous in the morning now offer only narrow patches of shade. The grasses beside the road have lost their early freshness, and the dust has warmed beneath passing feet and wheels. Nothing is hurried here. Even those who began the day with ambitious plans have settled into the practical pace allowed by bodies, animals, baggage, and ground. Distance in the Roman world is never simply a matter of counting miles. A road may be direct, yet steep. It may be level, yet softened by rain. A wagon may be strong, but heavily loaded. A traveler may be healthy, but delayed by companions, damaged equipment, or the needs of an animal. Terrain, road surface, weather, baggage, group size, health, and purpose all shape the length of a day's journey. For this reason, broad estimates of Roman travel are useful only as models. They suggest what might have been possible under certain conditions. They do not describe a fixed schedule followed by everyone. An ordinary walker might cover roughly 20 to 30 kilometers in a day. Some people would go farther, especially on a firm road, in mild weather, with little baggage. Others would cover much less. A family traveling with children, an older relative, and household bundles would not move like a soldier accustomed to marching. A craft worker carrying tools would not move like a local farmer making a familiar trip to a nearby market. Sore feet, poor health, summer heat, winter rain, or a steep ascent could shorten even a carefully planned stage. A mule cart or baggage vehicle might manage around 25 to 35 kilometers in favorable conditions, yet this too depended on the weight of the load, the quality of the route, the weather, and the condition of the animals. A slow wagon could still be making good progress if it carried its goods safely to the next town. Official messengers supported by relay stations and authorized to change animals often traveled more quickly. Routine couriers might cover roughly 50 to 80 kilometers in a day. Some recorded journeys were faster still, but those performances were exceptional. They could require long hours, fresh mounts, organized stations, and considerable strain upon both people and animals. Such speed should not be mistaken for the usual experience of merchants, families, walkers, or freight carriers. The courier's journey serves a particular purpose and depends on a special network. Most people on the road must continue with the same animal, the same load, and the same tired feet. The traveler now draws near a wagon whose broad wooden wheels turn with a steady, complaining sound. Roman wagons do not have modern suspension to soften every rise and hollow. A heavily laden vehicle feels the road directly. Each rut sends a vibration through the wheels, the axle, the load, and anyone seated above it. Even at a slow pace, that repeated shaking can be tiring. The driver does not urge the animals forward. Instead, he watches the surface carefully. He guides one wheel away from a hollow where loose stones have gathered. The mule nearest him lowers its head and pulls patiently. A second animal follows in harness, its coat darkened slightly where the straps rest. The famous stone roads that survive into later centuries can give a misleading impression. They may suggest that Roman travelers always moved over broad, smooth pavements made from carefully fitted slabs. Such surfaces did exist, especially in towns and along some important routes. Yet many roads were finished with compacted gravel rather than great paving stones. A well-made gravel road could be hard, well-drained, and effective. It could carry walkers, wagons, riders, and pack animals through many seasons. Even so, no surface remained perfect. Loose stones shifted under wheels. Dust rose in dry weather. Rain collected in hollows. Potholes formed, and repeated traffic pressed ruts into softer stretches. Repairs left patches of different materials. On hills, the gradient or steepness of the slope made every load feel heavier. Roads were maintained, but maintenance was a continuing task, not a permanent victory over weather and use. The wagon reaches a low wall at the edge of the road. A little shade has gathered beside it, and the driver guides the animals toward this narrow shelter. He speaks quietly to the traveler walking nearby, and together they pause. There is no ceremony in the decision. The animals need water and rest. The people do as well. In hotter parts of the Roman world, stopping near midday could be sensible. A pause spared travelers and animals from labor during the strongest heat. Yet it was not a universal formal rule observed in every province, season, and climate. On a cool northern day, people might continue steadily through noon. In winter, limited daylight could make a long halt impractical. Travel habits changed with local conditions, custom, work, and necessity. Here, beneath the high sun, stopping feels reasonable. The driver loosens the harness and examines the places where the leather rests against the mule's coat. He runs a practiced hand down one leg, then lifts the hoof. A small stone has lodged near the edge. It is removed gently. The hoof is inspected for cracks or tenderness before being placed on the ground again. Animal care shapes the journey as surely as milestones do. Mules, horses, oxen, and donkeys need water, fodder, rest, and regular attention. Loads must be balanced so that one side does not pull more heavily than the other. Straps need adjustment. Hooves need inspection. A tired or injured animal may slow the whole company. Even a traveler concerned mainly with time or profit understands that the animal's condition is tied to the success of the journey. A little attention beside the road may prevent a greater delay later. A cloth is laid across the low wall, and a modest meal is brought out. There is bread firm enough to travel well, with a few olives and a little cheese. The traveler drinks sparingly from a flask. The water is warm, but welcome. It may come from a well near a farm, a spring beside the road, a fountain in a settlement, or a cistern built to collect and store rainwater. Rivers and streams may also serve, although their water is not always clean or easy to reach. Stations can have wells or tanks. Local households may sometimes allow travelers to draw water, whether freely or in return for a small payment or favor. There is no guaranteed water source at every convenient interval. Even knowledge of a route cannot promise that a spring has not dried, that a cistern is usable, or that the rope at a well remains unbroken. Experienced travelers ask questions. They fill their containers when water is available. They learn from mule drivers, farmers, soldiers, innkeepers, and other people on the road where the next dependable supply may be found. The Roman poet Horace once wrote a comic account of a journey through Italy. His travelers did not pass smoothly from one perfect station to another. They encountered modest lodging, delays, and water so unpleasant that Horace chose not to drink it. At one point, the group took 2 days over a stretch that quicker travelers completed in one. The account is humorous, yet its ordinary inconveniences are revealing. A journey could be important without being fast. A well-traveled road did not remove every discomfort, and travelers did not always choose the quickest possible pace. Sometimes taking longer was simply easier, more comfortable, or more practical. Beside the low wall, the midday pause continues. Flies drift near the animals and are brushed away by the occasional movement of a tail. The wagon's wooden body gives a quiet creak as its load settles. Farther off, the heat softens the outlines of fields and farm buildings. For a time, the road appears almost still. Then a small group approaches from behind. 2 men walk beside a donkey carrying baskets. A woman holds a broad cloth above her head for shade. Their steps are unhurried, and the donkey's ears move gently at every nearby sound. They greet those resting by the wall and ask about water ahead. The wagon driver tells them of a farm well at a turning beyond the next rise. He also warns that the path is easy to miss because a roadside marker has fallen. This quiet exchange is as useful as any written itinerary. Local knowledge fills the gaps between official distances. A traveler learns where shade may be found, which bridge needs repair, which hill is harder than it first appears, and which spring remains reliable late in summer. The newcomers thank the driver and continue. Their footsteps grow softer as they approach the rise. Soon they are partly hidden by the slope, and only the baskets on the donkey remain visible for another moment. After a while, the wagon driver checks his vehicle again. A binding around one bundle has loosened under the repeated vibration. He tightens it, tests the knot, and presses the load to make sure it will not shift. The animals are offered fodder according to what has been carried and what can be obtained nearby. Water is given without haste. The traveler stands and brushes dust from the lower edge of the tunic. Feet are checked as carefully as harness and hooves. Sandals protect the soles, but straps may rub, and grit can work beneath them. A minor irritation noticed early is easier to manage than a painful injury after many more kilometers. For the ordinary traveler, the body is one more part of the journey that requires patient attention. A drink, a little food, a loosened sandal strap, and a few moments in the shade can make the afternoon stage more manageable. Soon the harness is fastened again. The load is adjusted by a hand's breadth to bring it into better balance. The driver looks once along the road, then gives a quiet signal. The wagon begins to move. Its wheels roll over the firmer center before easing around a patch of broken gravel. The mules return to their steady pace. The traveler follows, leaving the low wall and its narrow shade behind. The afternoon stage will not be measured only by the distance covered. It will also be measured by the condition in which everyone arrives. The mule should still be stepping evenly. The wagon should remain intact. The water flask should not be entirely empty, and the traveler should be able to rise and continue tomorrow. Ahead the road climbs gradually. Dust hangs behind the cart for a moment, and settles over stones and dry grass. No messenger is visible now. His quicker journey belongs to another purpose and another system of support. This part of the road keeps a gentler measure. Step by step and wheel turn by wheel turn, the distance gathers without announcing itself. The next patch of shade waits somewhere beyond the rise. Past it lies the turning toward the farm, and if the traveler's information remains good, the well. For now the road is warm, the pace is patient, and the long day continues through the quiet work of going onward.